You got the man, the myth, the legend back, Super Testnet. So what's up, man? How are you?
Doing great. Thank you for asking. How have you been doing?
I'm great. I'm great. So we talked to you a little bit earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday. I want to say that I talked to you last, but
Okay.
I'm bringing you back here because I went to Academy Sports and Outdoors. Who people who don't know like that, it's just a general sporting goods store. But we went and bought walkie talkies. Yeah,
Yep,
as you can see here, and you guys are gonna do something. I think like that I find really fucking crazy. So I want to break that down. So I believe it's called a mesh network. Is that correct?
that is correct. We're going to at least try to make I want to see if we can make a mesh network.
Okay. So explain what a mesh network is.
Right. Yeah. One of the areas of difficulty in Bitcoin is that it relies on the internet to some extent. It is possible to send Bitcoin off of the internet to people because Bitcoins are just text, and you can send text to people. But the ways and means of doing that are limited. So some people in the Bitcoin community are into, and it's a separate community called mesh networking. And mesh networking people try to set up alternative means of text-based communication with each other that don't involve relying on internet service providers who can really just cut off your access anytime they want to. One common way to do that, or one common subset of that community, is the ham radio community, who do this all the time. They're experts in it. They set up, big antennas and power them up, and then they know how to set the frequencies right so that they can talk to somebody all across the country, and they're really great at it. But I'm trying to get a little bit into that without some of the difficulties that come with joining the ham radio community. Like some of the equipment can be very expensive, and a lot of it requires a license to operate. So I decided I would start with regular old walkie-talkies that you can get out of a sports store. And I'm just going to hook this up. What I'm going to try to do is hook this up to my computer, use Morse code software to turn text-based signals from my computer into Morse code and transmit them to someone else. So we have two of them, and we just tested yesterday that they are able to reach over to Bitcoin Commons, which is another building here. So they have about a mile of range inside the city. And that's the plan is establish a text-based communication between us using Morse code. And then if other people want to join our network, they can just by buying one and plugging it into their computer and running whatever software we end up writing to do this.
That's wild. So all right. So with that too, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that essentially you can still transact Bitcoin, but it won't be, I guess, verified on the blockchain just yet. So it would take basically reconnecting to the internet whenever that would come back up at some certain point in order to verify that transaction. Is that true?
Not well. Depends. If none of the people on your network are on the internet, then yes, it won't be on the blockchain. But you would be able to set up Lightning channels when you do have internet, and then use them without being connected to the internet, because Lightning works offline.
Okay.
At least parts of it do.
Yeah.
The sending and receiving of transactions over Lightning can work offline.
Wow.
Anyway, so that part's there. But also, I expect that even if someone on the network is likely to be online, and if you can reach that person, you can transmit your stuff to the internet. So this increases the resiliency of the network by making it so that not everyone has to have a connection to the internet. You just have to have a connection to someone
just
who does.
One singular one. Yeah. And so then with a mesh network, because these it ranges about a mile within the city or so, is this, I guess, basically built for like more of like, I guess, like a local kind, almost like a Citadel kind of thing, where you could essentially just then ensure that you can transact within the city of Austin, for example?
That would be great. I don't have any high expectations for the success of this project. I think of it more as a scientific experiment at this stage. But if there is a city that we can get a mesh network going in among Bitcoiners, it's probably Austin, because there's probably a higher Bitcoiner to normie ratio here than anywhere else.
For sure.
And so, yeah, like we have two different Bitcoin buildings within a mile of each other. And I don't know if there's anywhere else in the world that has that. And so if we all you need to start a network is two nodes, then you have a network, and then you can tell other people, if you're within a mile of us, you can join or if you're not just of us, but if you're in a mile of anyone who's on our network, you can join.
Yeah. Okay.
Just by buying a regular old mic.
So then that can kind of, I guess, start like the web effect, so to speak, right? So if you have 1 mile there, 1 mile off to a different direction, maybe like northeast or something like that, then you can essentially, just like keep growing that web until, like, I don't know, you maybe have like all of downtown, so to speak.
And then maybe eventually we'll get, there's a lot of miners in Texas. So maybe we can get miners hooked up to this network eventually. And then you won't actually need to use the internet at all, because you can just get your transactions to a miner and they can mine it.
Wow, I didn't even think of that. That's pretty interesting too. Okay, so then, like, I guess, what is like the strength? So I mean, I don't know how to word this. So I mean, I guess, say, I don't know, it's like 25-mile radius or something like that of this mesh network, but you only have one online. Does it matter that you have like so many, I guess, Bitcoin either transactions or miners or something like that kind of pulling from that one connection? Or is it something that, like, all you really need is one and it's like infinite possibilities?
I'm not sure. Okay. I'm new to this community. Or I wouldn't even say I'm part of the radio community yet. All I have is 2 walkie-talkies and a dream. But I think I will learn whether you can do it all with one internet connection. Probably not. That sounds unlikely. But another thing is that when something becomes popular, if there's demand for it, then an industry can grow up around that, providing solutions. And so I would not be surprised. Well, I would be surprised, but I would be very pleasantly surprised if we get a network effect, and then there's enough demand for it that people start making products and offering solutions and saying, I can here's the best kind of radio to get, and I'll get some in stock and I'll sell them to Bitcoiners in Austin, and then maybe we expand beyond there. It could happen. Probably not. But that you never know unless you try.
Yeah. So, okay. So what was the, I guess, desire to do this, to get this kind of started, like get some walkie-talkies and kind of do this? Did you, obviously it solves like a problem of, maybe not necessarily needing internet. But it seems like there would be like a lot bigger problems if, like, I don't know, say that there was a big giant purge and like the entire city of Austin or something like that lost internet. So, I guess what was the motivation, one, to kind of find this and kind of get started? Is it just like more of a fun project for you, or do you, I guess, foresee this as a potential, I guess, doomsday need in the future?
It's a fun project. I think it's fun to just play with radios. They're cool. When I was getting into Bitcoin, and sometimes not when I was getting into it, when I was sharing the idea of Bitcoin with people, a common observation that someone would make before they've tried it is, but Bitcoin only works if you have internet. What if the internet goes down? And I think it's mostly valid. Like, Bitcoin would mostly stop working if we didn't have internet. Not entirely, but largely. So building in some resiliency for that would be cool. And in 2018, I think, or 19, I saw on Twitter some ham radio geeks who were also Bitcoiners sent each other a Bitcoin transaction or it wasn't even a Bitcoin transaction, but they sent like the seed words over the airwaves from one country to another without using the internet. And I was like, that's really cool. I want to do that, But as I started to look into it, it was like, well, in order to operate at those frequencies, you need a license, and it costs a certain amount of money, and you need specialized equipment. And so at some point recently, I was just like, why don't we just start small? Why don't we start with we're all in the same city. We're all within a mile of each other. We can just do this with simple radios you can buy at the store, and hook them up to some software that can send messages over them.
Yeah, and it is pretty interesting that you say that, because, especially that argument too, because I actually, today when I went to go get lunch, somebody was using a Square terminal at one of these food trucks, and it was down, it was offline. So we weren't able to pay, and they're like, do you have cash? And nobody in line had cash either. So I feel like what you're doing is help solve a problem that even like the current monetary system, has, because, like, unless you trust this food truck or somebody else to like essentially write down your credit card number or do something like that, it would be difficult to kind of, I guess, transact without the internet or anything online because, our monetary system as it stands, like I think you can only print like 10% of the actual like circulating dollars, so to speak. So
yeah, everything's online.
yeah.
And the internet's pretty resilient. Like even when it does go down, it'll probably be only down for a couple of hours before your internet service provider fixes whatever the problem is,
Yeah.
or you charge your battery or whatever it is you need. But yeah, that one difficulty is that internet service providers can shut you off. They can just the deplatforming stuff hasn't usually reached that level yet. But there's nothing stopping the woke police from saying, we don't only want you Visa to cancel their credit card, but we want you Comcast or whatever they are to disable their internet. And I would like to have backup solutions and say, well, you don't actually need internet. You can use radios.
Yeah, you don't have to use one of the providers. And it's interesting that you say that too, because I never really thought of that. Because in most major cities, like I'm in Tampa. I know like there's like Spectrum and Frontier are like the two brands that really can be provided in my area. And those are the only two choices I have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe in some bigger cities or maybe in Austin, you have like Google Fiber or like 3 or 4 different options, but really like you don't really have too many options when it comes to internet. And yeah, I imagine, like you said, if the woke police come at you, like one of the companies comes at you, all the rest of them are right. Eventually, like they're not too far down the line. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting. It's essentially making Bitcoin more and more resilient by doing this.
And it's also just playing with walkie-talkies.
Yeah,
that's kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, with the amount of devs and other things that we have here in Austin, yeah, man, I could see you really like working towards that. So like, I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot and say like a timeline or something like that. But, as you're obviously we got the hackathon Saturday and other things like that, coming up in the short term. But, how much of I guess a priority is this one? Is it just kind of like a fun project, or are you going to like, I guess, really dive into the weeds in this in the next couple of weeks?
I don't know.
No plans yet.
I don't have many plans. The hackathon is coming up. I plan to bring them to the hackathon and say, does anyone want to help me just set up talking to each other over walkie-talkies in this room? And then once we've done that, we can take one of those computers with one of the walkie-talkies to a different building and see how far we can get a connection. Yeah, I would like to do that, but we'll see. If no one wants to work on that, which is very possible,
yeah,
I'll be glad to join someone else's project and then do this again some other time. But I've got lots of projects, lots of backlogs. Yeah. I'll probably at some point. I usually start a new project when I get bored with my current one, and this one's not. I'm currently working on another one, so yeah. This one's waiting.
Yeah, this one's in the back burner, right?
Yeah, I don't know when I'll get bored with my current projects and then decide this is the next priority.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's get into the connection with this when it comes to like a computer with another computer, right? So we have 2 walkie-talkies here. Essentially, I mean, obviously you haven't even gotten started on it or anything like that, but theoretically, would it just be like essentially, how you change the channel on a walkie-talkie, right? Mm-hmm. It's like on this certain frequency, and that's how you can essentially talk them back and forth. Would that essentially be like, I guess, the same kind of thought process when it comes to connecting like multiple computers?
Yeah. So before I go into that, I want to tell you a little bit about channels because you sparked some thoughts.
Okay,
and they might be interesting.
Yeah.
There are regulations even around the use of simple little walkie-talkies like this. There are like legal regulations. You can break the law and get fined and stuff.
Is there really?
There are, yeah. So on these types of walkie-talkies, they're on a radio spectrum called the Family Radio Service.
Okay.
Which was designed basically for kids.
Yeah.
They're like for baby monitors and stuff. Those are just walkie-talkies. They're designed for toys, and that one has no license required to operate them, as long as you stay within certain limits. So those limits are you can't put more than half of a watt of power into the antenna on channels 1 through 14, And then on channels 14 through 22, you're allowed to put up to 2 watts of power. Now, in a city, every watt of power that you put into the antenna strengthens your signal, and it gets you about an additional mile of distance as far as these things can go. But very often, toy walkie-talkies like these ones, or very cheap walkie-talkies, will just limit it to half a watt.
Yeah.
That way they have no chance of accidentally breaking a law. So I assume that's what these do, but also they did get all the way to commons yesterday when I tried them, and that's a mile. So they might be pumping out nearly 2 watts on the upper channels, which is where I put it to one of the higher channels to do that. So that'd be cool. Anyway, they come with a microphone and headphone jack. So I plan to pop those into my computer. And the ham radio community already has software for translating text into radio beeps and boops. So I plan to install some of that software, which I've already been looking into, and then just see if I can do a transmission.
Yeah,
because they're supposed to work. It's supposed to work on any spectrum. It doesn't have to be the ham radio spectrums. It can be the family radio service spectrum. But yeah, that's basically the plan. Is use this existing software with these basically toy walkie-talkies and see if it works.
The ham radio community, huh?
Yeah.
That's crazy though. I mean, yeah, man, that's just okay. So obviously, when it comes to like walkie-talkies and other things, there's issues with blocking signal, or obviously it doesn't always go through walls or other things like that. If anybody does kind of play with one, if you go like down the street, do you think that there could be a potential issue when it comes to, obviously we're in downtown Austin, right? So there's big skyscrapers, other things like that. Do you think that could be a potential issue as you guys, I guess, try to scale, or would that just essentially just affect the distance that one would go? Or are you not even sure yet?
Yeah, I am sure that it affects things.
yeah, I'm sure this affects things, but to the extent you don't know yet, obviously, right?
Yeah, I imagine that if you have a skyscraper in your way, you're probably not going to get around it because it's a big metal, signal
affecting the signal.
It's basically a big antenna. And it's going to absorb all that. Well, I imagine that's how it works. That the big metal things absorb the signal and block it from proceeding. But
yeah.
So
I don't know. All this stuff is foreign to me too. So
I know that in the user manual it talks about line of sight being very important.
So that you can see somebody when you're
you get a much better chance of reaching them if you can see them. So like even walls and stuff present obstacles.
When you did this with the commons, was somebody outside the commons or were they inside the building?
Well, at first I was outside. I walked all the way to the other side of the building and checked if we still had a signal, and we did. And then I went inside and got onto the commons floor. So Topher, who was here with the other headset, he was here at PlebLab. He was inside. I was inside on a mile away, and we could still hear and talk to each other. We could converse. The signal did get faint. So there was some static on the line you could hear, but I was able to hear him and talk to him. So I hope that the ham radio software is able to distinguish signal from noise as well as a human ear can, and I think it probably can because they've been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. So all right. So if anybody's listening, or maybe that the ham radio community is in tune with what I got going on here, probably not. But how can what resources do you need to, I guess, try to help accomplish this goal? How can somebody help you or figure out like the updates as you're going along this project?
Well, I don't really know because I haven't exactly started the project yet. I don't know.
I gotcha.
I haven't assessed what the obstacles might be. But some of them immediately come to mind. I haven't even tested the software yet, so maybe I won't even be able to get the software running.
Yeah, I gotcha.
That could be an issue. Or one thought I've had is these have a microphone and speaker jack, but they also have the push to talk button. So what if I plug this thing into my computer, and every time I'm supposed to send a message, it wants me to hit the button still?
Yeah.
Will I have to, pop this off and then hook up some circuitry to do that for me when I hit a button or when my computer hits a button? Or if anyone knows how to do that stuff or override the push to talk button or something. I was reading the user manual to see if it clarified.
I doubt it, huh? Because it's probably a kid's toy. They don't go into that, I bet.
Yeah, but I can do some immediate tests. Like I know that a lot of microphones have a button on them to turn on and off stuff on your cell phone, like if you're playing music.
Yeah.
So I don't think it probably works with this button, but maybe it could. So I'm checking to see that, because then a computer can send whatever signal makes that happen. Yeah, so lots of experimenting to do, but if anyone there's a lot of questions there, a lot of stuff I don't know. If anyone's like, I know the answer to that, or I know a radio geek who'd love to help you out, that'd be awesome. One thing I find on forums because I've been exploring forums as I thought about making plans for this, and ham radio forums, and everyone on them is always like, first of all, the first step is get a license. They're like, it's very easy to do. It costs like $50 to get one, and then you take an online test, and then they just send you your license. But that's the thing I don't want to do. I don't want this to be an activity for which you need a license. I want anyone to just be able to go get a walkie-talkie and then join our network.
Yeah.
So
because then it would be like essentially like a decentralized mesh network, right? Theoretically,
that'd be the hope.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, another decentralized within the city, I guess.
Speaking of decentralized, another problem with walkie-talkies is that anyone can join your channel and disrupt your signal, because there's no license and there's no one to complain to if they're just sending messages too,
Yeah.
So once we have this set up, I would love to see if trolls are just like, let's just broadcast, get our own walkie-talkies and just broadcast, haha, you can't use Bitcoin now.
Yeah.
That could easily happen. And then we have to figure out some remedy for that.
Yeah. Maybe get like a unique channel that I don't know if you could, I guess, find a way to do that though. Like a unique channel to, I don't know.
Well, so cell phones started out with a similar problem to this, because when cell phones came out, they were using, I think the history of them is that they were using a public spectrum. And there were problems where people would start disrupting them. So then they applied to the FCC to get their own spectrum, and the FCC took a chunk of the public spectrum and said, this is not for public use anymore. It'll be illegal if someone uses this.
Yeah.
So something like that could happen again. It's happened before, and if Bitcoin becomes very popular and people are using it in this manner, and then other people are trying to disrupt it, you might be able to apply to make that a public good or a public space and say, there's going to be this piece of the spectrum is reserved for Bitcoin. That would be kind of cool. I'd like to see that. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, man, this whole thing is just mind blowing to me. So it is pretty interesting. But the one thing that I kind of thought of when you were describing that about people disrupting, would it be similar to I don't know if you've seen the videos of the Ring cameras that people have in I don't know, kids' rooms or something, somebody can hack into those. I know that's kind of over an internet thing, opposed to maybe just short-term radio frequencies. But essentially people have just been hacking in those and just yelling at some of the kids in there, or doing something stupid like that and hacking into that. Would it be kind of, I guess, something similar, or would it be not quite as complex because it's over radio frequencies opposed to maybe internet or something?
I'm not sure. I know that signal jamming is pretty easy because they were doing it in World War II.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's just making a really loud noise next to a microphone. But I don't know. It's probably more. I'm sure there's better ways to do it than that.
Yeah.
But that would probably work. If you just make it so that you can't find the signal you're looking for because there's a big loud banging noise.
Yeah.
You might not be able to do it. You might not be able to use that frequency anymore.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, if someone was doing that, the FCC might go knocking on the door just because they're disrupting they're making it so no one can use that frequency.
Yeah,
that could happen.
That's interesting.
One thing about radios is that they do reveal your location. The very act of using a radio emits a signal in all directions. And if you have 3 different antennas that can pick up that signal, you can triangulate where the signal originates from. So the FCC, and not just the FCC, but even amateur ham radio people do that for fun. They will find where a signal is emanating from and then go visit whoever sent it out. Say, welcome to the community. Do you have your license?
Oh, man.
So
they're self-policing almost then, huh?
Yeah. Well, they're super into it, or at least many ham radio people are. And I think it's fun. I think that sounds fun.
Yeah.
Just you see some new signal in your area and you're like, I know how to find him.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Like, what's up? I'm working the radio waves too. That's awesome, dude. So, yeah, man, keep it. I want to hear more updates about this as you go along with it. But one thing that I find super interesting just here about PlebLab is like this is the water cooler talk. I think instead of talking about maybe like March Madness or some of these other things going on right now, we're talking about solving some of these problems, and then some of these other solutions come up. So just overall cool stuff. Super Testnet, thanks for coming in, man, and talking to me again and giving me another 30 so minutes of your time, dude. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing this mesh network develop over time. So I guess I'll have to come back to Austin to see the updates.
Yeah, that'll be great. No promises that even anything will happen.
Yeah,
but I think if we do it, I'm going to be really excited.
Yeah, I mean, even if it doesn't work,
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, even if it doesn't work, though, I want to know about like the struggles or maybe like some of the roadblocks or some other things that like came up about it. And then, yeah, you never know. Maybe we can find a way around it. I'm sure, like, if there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, I'm sure.
Almost everything is possible if you try hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Super Testnet, man, thank you so much for coming in.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks. Yeah, so everybody go check out Super Testnet on Twitter and Nostr. That's super_testnet. Is that correct?
On Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, on Twitter. And then I think your Nostr public key is on your Twitter. Is that right?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, just find him on Nostr. He's Anon. So